Many people say that music is a universal language. If that's the case, I would like to use music as a platform to talk about health. My name is Dr. Moshe Lewis, and I'm a full-time practicing physician who loves music and the way it affects our brains, our bodies, and our well-being. I would like to invite you to tune in where we interview musical artists about health matters that are important to them. But the truth is, we'll be discussing topics that affect all of us. From mental health to body image, cancer screening to stroke, our health is truly our greatest asset. So the goal is to open the dialogue on health to embrace topics that we don't always like to talk about in a way that's raw, candid, and lit. Hopefully, these discussions will improve the health of our community. After all, your health matters to me, and if I can make it sound more beautiful, then that's something we should all listen to.
Music and medicine, when you hear those words, how do they speak to your heart?
Music and medicine, music is medicine. You feel me?
Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. We are here with music royalty today, EDI from the Outlaws. We have gotten together at least on 2 occasions, if not 3 before, so becoming like a brother from a different mother. But like we were talking offline, I wanted to really take that time to really talk about the history in a little bit more detail. We've covered it before here and there, but in light of Mr. Noble's passing, I thought it would be really good to kind of put together just those roots of how you first got started in music and with your groups, and then ultimately became part of the Outlaws.
Yeah, well, my start in music is like most people just became as a fan and just a lover, especially of hip hop music. My mother was the person that introduced me to hip hop. She would hang out in the clubs in the disco days where hip hop started to emerge and it was born, and she would bring home these records that I just was fascinated with, from groups like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and the Sugar Hill Gang, and all those early hip hop records just had me mesmerized. And then when I heard a group by the name of Run DMC come out with a record called Sucker MCs, I just knew this is what I wanted to do with my life.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did you first meet and become aware? I know it was, I think, to a relative about Tupac.
Well, my family and Tupac's family were connected and intertwined, and very briefly, my father and his aunt went to college together in New York City, and they became fast friends. And then she introduced my father to her husband, and they became really close. And then the story goes, my father said, "My wife don't like nobody, but she'll like y'all." and he introduced my mother to them, and this is before I was born, and Tupac was a little boy, and then everything just sprang from there, and it's been going on over 50 years, our families being connected and just being like one at this point.
Sure. Talk about the city and what the time was like when you guys were growing up.
New York City was just, for me, I have so many fond memories. I know it was the 80s, it was the emergence of crack, and the streets were treacherous, but I have very fond memories in New York City, just being a kid and being free, and, our parents allowing us to roam and sort of figure things out on our own. Of course, we were, taken care of, but, we would use our imagination and just run the streets of New York and figure out life. And Tupac was always a leader, and always one we look to for direction. And when I say we, I mean the younger children.
Sure. Talk to us about the founding members, because I know Noble came on a little bit later.
Yeah, the founding members, like of the Outlaws as a unit, is Tupac, of course, myself, Yafeo Fula, who's no longer with us. He later would be known as Gaddafi, and then Castro, Qatari Cox, my childhood friend, and it was his mother that introduced my his mother and my father, who were friends in college.
Absolutely. And then just talk to us about sort of how that germination occurred, because I know that while I was in prison, you started thinking about sort of this master rap group called the Outlaws.
Yeah, well, back in 1992, me, myself, Castro, and Yafeo flew to Oakland, California to begin our rap careers. And I had always wanted to be a rapper, like I said before, and Tupac was starting to emerge. And, he already had an album and Juice the movie. And so he began to, put us under his tutelage on how to, be successful in this business, how to actually make records and be a viable recording artist in the hip hop world. And then when he unfortunately had to go and do some time, that's when he started to come up with this idea of, changing our monikers and changing our name and this whole outlaw immortal ideology and concept started to come about.
Sure. What do you think are some of the key takeaways that you felt you got from the music production, just changing where you were going in terms of the musicality and the sound?
Well, Tupac was just a great teacher because he allowed us to learn by watching him. He wasn't really a dictator type, but he would just say, "Watch me," and he would show us different ways of coming up with concepts for songs and not just doing it the regular way. Most hip hop artists did songs and talking about themselves and, braggadocious type hip hop. He also showed us that you can talk about life and talk about the world. And his musical palette was so advanced that he would pull inspiration from all kind of music genres. And so I just really learned a lot from watching him create. Yeah.
Absolutely. When did or how did you get to know Mr. Noble?
Noble came to us after we formed the Outlaws and added some new members to the group like Hussein Fatal and Napoleon. And Noble was from Montclair, where Gaddafi and Hussein grew up in Jersey, New Jersey. And so when we came to California after Tupac was released from prison on bail, Noble was already out
Okay.
out here in California. He's actually the only member of the Outlaws that's originally from California.
Right.
He was born in Altadena and bounced back and forth between California and New Jersey. And it just so happened that, Gaddafi and Hussein Fatal reached out to him to let them know that they were out here.
Right.
And Noble started to, come around us more often, but we didn't know he could rap at the time. He was just super supportive and somebody that didn't come looking for a record deal, just came with support, and we just loved him for that. And
Right.
then the rapping came later.
Sure. What was your sense of the talents that he was also able to bring ultimately to the group?
Well, funny story, I found out Noble could rap because he would cut my hair. He was also a barber.
Right.
And so one day he was cutting my hair and he was like, "Yo, I wanna let you hear something." I'm like, "You rap?" And he just spit this incredible verse for me. And I was like, "Whoa, you've been around us. It was at least 2-3 months now. You never said anything." You know what I mean? And so then right after that, shortly after that, I whispered in Pac's ear one day, like, "Yo, he got bars. He can actually rap." And he was like, "What? Noble?" Because at the time, Pac wanted Noble to be the head of our fan club. He could draw as well. That was another one of his talents. And, he was going to handle the fan club for the Outlaws. And, Pac asked him to rap. And when Pac heard him, he was blown away. He was almost a little pissed off. Like, "Yo, you've been around me all this time and you never..." After that, it was, the rest is history.
Sure, absolutely. Let's talk about that history because also offline we were talking about how much work you've done, and I don't think many people appreciate to continue to preserve not only the history, the legacy, but also to literally continue to produce music for the group, including Mr. Noble's work as well.
Yeah, it's just something that we love to do. And as, group members started to leave the group and go take different paths in life, me and Noble stayed together and continued to push forward and continue to create. And I always, when I tell younger artists, I said, if you love this, it won't be work for you. It'll just be a passion. It'll be a calling, a purpose. And, even though it has been so many years, it doesn't really seem like it's been as long as it is because I've truly been living in my purpose and doing something that I've loved to do
Right.
since I was a little boy.
Sure. What are some of the fond memories, or maybe just one that you have of having worked with Noble in the studio and stuff like that?
Some of my favorite memories is our travels. We hit a lot of countries together, man, and we would get a chance to see places that neither him or I ever imagined we would get to. And although at times it was bittersweet because we, we're down a few group members, we really had a good time just being able to connect with different people from all over the world. And just seeing him, a young kid from Jersey that came to us and joined the Outlaws at 17 years old, get a chance to see the whole world was, really pleasurable for me to be able to share that experience with him.
Sure. Do you sense that as guys, it's harder to talk about like health issues and things like that when they're going on, just to not sort of show that side and or to not be able to find doctors and people to get to?
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, in this lifestyle that we live in the hip hop world, any sign of weakness can be used against you.
Mhm.
Hip hop is super competitive. It's as competitive as any sport
Right.
you can imagine. And everybody is vying for the top position. Everybody is, doing what they can do to maintain and stay relevant. And, showing that you are hurting, whether it's physical or mental, is just a sign of weakness. And most of us are not willing to share that publicly.
Right. Right. What do you think, given that we need to try to continue to do, not only as a society, but just, as physicians also?
Well, it's first being honest and being vulnerable enough to be honest is the first step, and like I said, when you've been in hip hop and you've been embedded with this ideology of, I'm the man, I'm the guy, and can't nothing phase me, can't nobody touch me. It's hard to turn that off and then say, well, you know what? Some days I wake up and I don't really feel that good.
Right.
And I'm getting older as a hip hop artist and I have these aches and pains. It's just something that we haven't gotten to that point, and honestly, I don't know if we ever will. Hopefully, something changes where not only we can as artists be vulnerable enough, but the audience can be able to accept that and respect that
True.
and still support the artist.
Yeah. Now, you and I have obviously had these kind of conversations before, and you've been very honest. What do you think um, makes you different? What do you think helps you feel comfortable with that vulnerability?
Well, I was mentored by a guy who did a song called Dear Mama where he talked about his hero, his mother,
Mm-hmm.
being addicted to crack. And I had a conversation with Chuck D, and Chuck D said Dear Mama is the hardest hip hop record ever created. And when you think about it sonically, it's not as hard as anything, sonically as Public Enemy did, but the vulnerability the fact that he was able to say that on the record just made, a great like Chuck D say it's the hardest hip hop record ever. So with that being said, if he could do that, I surely can, reach inside and be vulnerable. And every other hip hop artist in this genre can do the same thing.
Sure. Do you sense that the industry really sort of pushes that as well? I mean, like you said, there's a lot of competition, but there's that, hey, we got the next tour, the next show, the next dollar, the next gig, next album, go, go, go. It's a nonstop
Yeah,
produce.
yeah, it really is like that. And, you very rarely find people until they get to a certain level of success, you very rarely find people take breaks in hip hop or, because it is a chase, so to speak, to, get to the money, get to the success, get to the next high, so to speak, and, you know, it's a slippery slope because you find yourself years start to accumulate and then you've never really taken time to take care of yourself, and
Right.
then now you are forced with this reality that you do have issues that you need to take care of, and sometimes it's too late.
Right. Yeah. No, I think, like I said, it's been amazing that you've felt so comfortable being willing to share your health challenges and things like that.
Mhm.
And we want to really honor Noble with all that he contributed. What do you feel is the legacy that the Outlaws communicate through their music to the fans?
Oh, without a doubt, it's one of survival, and perseverance, and coming against some of the steepest, toughest obstacles one could imagine in the music business, and still being able to, journey on. I think, most people will definitely remember us for that, as well as, what we contributed to a lot of course, Tupac's music and our own music separately.
Sure. I kind of lost count, but I felt like I was almost up to at least 12 albums or projects that you'd worked on directly related to the Outlaws as well as Tupac's work since his untimely passing. Just talk to us about sort of that labor of love to continue to keep his memory alive, the work that you all did out there.
Yeah. You know, we all made a commitment to each other that, even and it sounds kind of warped, but we all knew some of us wouldn't all make it. You know what I mean? Just growing up in America as young black males, statistically the odds are against us. So with that reality, we made a commitment to each other that no matter who's here, no matter who's the last one left, we'll continue this legacy over and make sure that we do our best to lift it as high as we possibly can until we can't no more.
Sure. What's that message that you want fans to most know from you, sincerely from your heart in terms of their support and their love over the years?
It is one of, obviously keeping your head up through storms and trials and tribulations. Greatness is something that I like to preach in my music now as well, as far as being as good as you can be, as great as you can be, self-mastery, working on yourself constantly and consistently every day to be the best you that you could possibly be, and being an asset to the world, and so on and so forth, man. I just think that those are things that are very important for all of us, whether you're in hip hop or not, to aspire to and strive for.
No, absolutely. If there was some message you could communicate to a younger artist that's in the game that, like you said, has got nothing but this focus on trying to get that bag and kind of maybe neglecting other types of things and or getting into things that may be problematic, whether it's deals or contracts, what advice might you have for some younger kids that are new to the game?
Make sure this is something that you really want to do. Make sure you're doing it because you love to do it. It sounds cliches, but don't do it for money. And I know some people may see this interview and they want to be artists and, hurt in the pockets a little bit. And they like, yo, man, what are you talking about? I need to get paid. But anything that you do, you have to do it for something more than monetary gain. You have to do it for more than the accolades, the praise, the audience's tears. You have to do it because this is something that you love and it will sustain you for years. I'm living proof of that because there's been times where I didn't make money off of music. There was time where there was no audience, you know what I mean? And all I had was the music and my love for it, and it got me to the next day.
Sure. And I wanted to tease that out. I'm glad you started going there because I think that that's one of the challenges sometimes from the outside to realize that overall the life expectancy in professional sports, in certainly many careers, and definitely in music in general, regardless of how good you may be, is relatively short. We won't
Yeah,
say how long, but we could put some numbers in there,
yeah, we
3 to 10 years, depending.
yeah.
So, how do artists kind of keep their eyes wide open to that fact that, like you said, there won't necessarily always be money. There won't always be, selling out stadiums and things like that, no matter what genre you're in, even if it's not hip hop.
Um, accept that reality, listen to my advice as far as what will sustain you and get you to the next phase. But also when you start to make money, make sure you have good people around you and you're getting good advice and good sound advice, and hire good people that you can trust and do your due diligence to vet these people out. And because when it all goes up in flames, so to speak, and things go wrong, everybody's going to point at you. Nobody's going to care. Well, my manager did this or my accountant. Nobody cares.
Mm.
They're just going to put it all on you. You know what I mean? Right, wrong, and indifferent. So keep that in mind. You know what I mean? And have the foresight and the vision to, make good decisions while you're in this business as best as you possibly can.
Sure. Being one of the longest living and almost pretty much the closest to him, what message do you continue to carry from Tupac, every day in your heart and in your life, having spent so much time with him?
Yeah, against all odds, Tupac himself was somebody that came up against very formidable obstacles, and from having a parent addicted to drugs, to not really knowing his father, growing up in poverty, you name it. And he managed to lift himself up by the bootstraps, so to speak, to become one of the biggest stars in the world while he was living, and then dying, unfortunately, and becoming even bigger in death, to the point where he's now an icon on the levels of people like Bob Marley and, James Dean and so on and so forth. American folk heroes. Tupac has definitely reached that iconic level, and it's because his work ethic was unmatchable. He was supremely confident in his abilities as an artist and as a person, and you know, mm, what I took from that was that the belief in yourself is paramount. Whether you're in the music industry, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whatever, you have to believe in yourself. And that belief comes from putting in the work. You know what I mean? Your confidence comes from putting in that work each and every day, working on your craft, working on yourself. Then you can go out in the world and say, I deserve everything that comes to me because I worked for it.
Sure. On a positive note, what's a favorite story or memory that you have that maybe you haven't shared of spending time with him?
Um, so many, at times it becomes, the years start to accumulate and it becomes all a blur. But some of my most fondest times is absolutely recording music. I feel like that was when he was, most comfortable. Aside from acting as well, which came very naturally to him, music is when he got a chance to, even though he was bald head, let his hair down, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And similarly, because we don't want to not continue to pay homage to him, what's a fond memory you have of working with Young Noble?
Noble was just really a rapper's rapper. You know what I mean? He really got into the nuts and bolts of what it means to be an MC. And he was my favorite MC, my favorite rapper out of the group. And just his work ethic as well, tenacious when it came down to working on music and projects. And, you know, um, I'll always be fond of his love of the Outlaws and what we accomplished as a group. He was, you know, the um the one out the group, in my opinion, that loved it the most.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So our show is called Music and Medicine. We always ask, when you hear those words on your heart or in your ears, how does it sound? How does it speak to you?
Well, for me, music is very therapeutic. It always has been, since I was a little kid. And so, music and medicine are one and the same in a lot of ways. It's highly medicinal in the fact that, if you're sad, music can lift you up. You know what I mean? If you're happy, it can elevate that happiness. It could take you back to a moment in time, what I mean, that you might have thought you forgot about. As soon as you hear a melody, it'll take you back to that day when you first heard that song. Music is, um, it is medicine. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks so much. We're so appreciative to Edie Amin and continuing the work and the legacy of the Outlaws as well as Tupac, but also wanted to take a moment to pay a sincere tribute to the life and the memory of Young Noble and his contributions to the group. Not only being willing, it sounds selflessly, to be willing to sort of be the wingman and help and do whatever was needed, from cutting hair to maybe carrying equipment and stuff like that. But then finally when, he had the bravery to showcase his talent talent to literally shine. And as Edie
Yes,
said,
indeed.
really put in that hard work, similarly to their mentor, Tupac. I think the legacy, not only for the group, but even the individuals, speak to, like you said, one of determination, tenacity, something we can all benefit from. But as today's message really is geared towards talking about not being willing to ignore those signs, those challenges that we face, that we all will face with time, over time, in the industry, out the industry, with respect to our health, with respect to getting sleep, with respect to eating healthier, with respect to staying away from bad influences, be they drug, be they certain people, be they certain substances that we know aren't good for us. And we know it, and yet the temptation can come. So certainly stay confident and certainly stay dedicated to your craft, but yet also make sure that you yourself are held enough in high regard and love yourself enough to take care of yourself. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well said.
Sure.
Thank you
All
again.
right,